Welcome, Reggie. Reggie Brock, good to have you with us today.
Pleasure to be here. What a great event.
Yeah, so, you told me just before we started, this is your first experience with Strategic Coach?
Read a bunch of the books, but this is my first live program that I've been a part of, and it's been far exceeded my expectations. What a wonderful group of people.
Yeah, now you said your partner's been in the program for a while?
Yeah, he has. He's at 10X, and Matt's been with the program, I guess, 3 years or so.
Okay.
So that's kind of been my foundation and kind of what I'm kind of growing off of and about to get more involved in.
Good. So Reggie, go back a little bit. What's your business, and maybe give that a little description for us.
Our company is called That One Company, and our whole framework is built around how do we help companies drive deeper engagement with their employees.
Okay.
And we have found out that a quick way that takes time, if you will, to get deeper involvement with and engagement with your employees is if you take into consideration how they are feeling and thinking regarding the results they're producing. And by and large, most people either don't think it's significant or don't put much value in it one way or the other. But we feel like being able to really get people in the mindset of abundance, getting them their actions to follow, creates different results. And so we really focus on trapping that data. How do we trap the way they're thinking and the way they're feeling to help alter in a positive way the results?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Intuitively makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so, how do you do that for a company? You got kind of an example that would give us a think more clearly about that?
Yeah. So we've created 3 spaces really to capture that data. One of them is that we do a daily survey to all of their employees that is just built around those 2 measurables, like how are you thinking about your day, how are you feeling about your day, and why is that significant? Because it dramatically affects the way they perform. And we've created what we consider this new KPI to where it's measurable. We collect that data and then we provide it to the leadership team, and we use it in discussion with the employees to help them kind of work through some of the challenges they're experiencing. Because we know this, engaged employees are more productive.
Right.
And so this really affects even the ROI of a business by focusing on these areas and helping people work through them.
So is it work with the employees, or do you also do work with any of clients as well with them, or is it basically deal with the employees?
So it's a whole company approach. Okay. So a lot of times what you find is there's been a lot of walls built and we're trying to help install doors. And so being able to have people not be so concerned about the layers of their business, but how do we create a sense of community to where there's constant flow of communication and a collaboration to where people feel like no matter their role or responsibility inside the company, their contribution matters.
How can, I'm thinking now from an entrepreneur standpoint, and as the owner of the company like I am, how can we tell that, because sometimes we're maybe not as in tune with all of these things. How can we, do you ever have that happen when they think things are fine, but underneath that the water's a lot rougher and a lot calmer?
And when we see it happen the most is when we hear statements like this, I never saw that coming. Well, by the time you catch it, it's sometimes dramatically perilous. And so what we try to do is we've created this early detection tool to where we're catching things early and driving that up to leadership. And what we do is say, take your empirical hard data and then lay over this empathy and this emotional mental tool that we've provided, and you'll start seeing correlation. So where you see lack of results in some places, these are explainers. And so what we have found is employees want to be seen and heard, but at times they're not courageous enough to have that direct conversation with the employer or their leader. And so with us, they're able to document that every day with anticipation that we're rolling that data up to the leader so that they want them to know, they're just not comfortable having the conversation themselves. And so the more of that we develop, the more courageous they become, the more vulnerable they're willing to be, and the communication is unlocked at a very, very high level.
So I would think that the leadership also has to be very receptive to this.
No doubt.
Because I can think about it and visualize that some people would like to say something, but they don't know how that leader's going to react, how their supervisor's going to react if they say something that isn't quite on on what they were thinking about. That's a little bit odd, or
it's awkward, it's
yeah.
uncomfortable, and people have history. Like they've been in a place where they've tried to be vulnerable and be honest and talk through some thoughts, but they're afraid to be judged, or they're afraid to be, they're going to be, ridiculed for their opinion or whatever the emotion is. So they just shut down. And so what we do is extract that, and we start creating and helping them to develop those muscles, like our muscles in our body. Your emotional muscles and your mental fitness has to be considered. And so once they start getting more comfortable with that, the conversations just become ones that are freeing in a lot of cases.
Have you, I presume, but you probably run into the situation where you've gone down and you're talking to employees and they said, I've tried to say this before, or I've said this before, but nobody listened, nothing changed, and so I said, why bother?
Yeah, happens all the time.
Yeah.
And so they just quit trying. And they're there by transactional. It's just their relationship with the company becomes quickly sterile and transactional.
Yeah.
And so it's a barrier. And with us, it's not just dealing with the teams. We're dealing with the leadership to help them to understand. Listen, there's valid reason here why that you're not getting the communication and collaboration you're looking for, because the experiences in the past have been bad. So we start with like just a baseline of, we've got to be honest, and we've got to be open, and we've got to be willing to hear, or we go nowhere.
Yeah, and that affects the performance, right, of the company, the people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've had a lot of people tell us in the past, like, because when I was growing up in business, the bosses that I've had, they did not care about how I felt. They didn't care about what I thought. They said, go do the job. It's not the way it is today. Right. And so people that aren't embraced mentally and emotionally never sense belonging. If you're willing to hear me, you don't have to agree with me all the time, but just hearing me and giving me the opportunity to be heard, even though you may not go the direction I tell you, matters. Statistically, Forbes just did a huge study on employee engagement. They said 3 really interesting statistics. The number 1 statistic was, listen, engaged employees are 21% more profitable employees than those who aren't. 21, not revenue, profit. Yeah. They're 23% more productive in the workplace, and their level of customer satisfaction is through the roof difference. And so now they're being able to track this measurable of thinking that truly the way people think and feel affects it from a business perspective, and people are more open to investing in these type of programs.
Yeah, I would think too, coming back to being an entrepreneur, is we're only as good as the people and the team around us. So this has got to have a positive impact on even the entrepreneur themselves, what they're capable of and what they're going to work on, because the rest of their team is all functioning at a higher level.
No doubt. And communication and collaboration is not restricted. And so I think what's happened is many times in, I think the last 40 or 50 years of leadership development, we've done a really poor job, and this is probably going to rub some people wrong, in the way we've built the business in terms of how divided it is. And listen, everybody, there's some roles that the leaders have that not everybody can be, but when those walls separate us, divide us, and create the silos that we're seeing with a lot of people that we work with, we're in trouble. And so leadership has to understand, listen, our collaboration is quickened by our ability to communicate without fear of judgment. Does that mean that people shouldn't be corrected? No, but you have to have a willingness and an openness to have dialogue that leads you to alignment. And that's what I think we're missing.
So that must be difficult for an entrepreneur who starts out as a rugged individualist and doing everything.
That's right.
And not really having the time to effectively delegate and train other people, but they keep hiring people. Maybe they've hired the right people, maybe not. They've hired the right people. So do you see that kind of prevailing inside of an entrepreneurial organization?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that every entrepreneur has a spirit that's different than most. There's just this energy that they have, that they want to put their hands on something. They want the freedom that comes with it, but with that comes, some things that I think entrepreneurs overlook, and that is the relationship with the people that help them drive the business forward. And you know, for me personally, delegation has been really hard as an entrepreneur because I know I'll put my hands on it, get it done, but it limits me really operating my unique ability as much as I should. There is definitely a challenge for us entrepreneurs who face that, but listen, the idea is how do we create a sense of unity, clarity, a sense of alignment that creates this collective force, we call it, that pushes us together to greater gains than we can do by ourselves.
So I've also heard the expression, we're not delegating, we're elevating. Is that a different mindset for, you know, thinking what you're doing for people? Because people say, oh, you're just giving me my crap to do. And so they don't have a positive view of the work being delegated.
Yeah, well, I think the strategy is more about how do we delegate things I'm not the best at to someone whose skills fit that task. That's delegation to me. So when delegation occurs, you shouldn't just, to me, drop it off to someone because you don't want to do it. Because if you drop it off to someone who doesn't want to do it, you're then going to have to find eventually someone who does do it. So as the whole model with Coach goes, it's just how do we find the gifts and the talents and the 20% abilities of everybody there, and then as tasks are delegated, they're delegated to the right people who enjoy performing and that elevates the entire organization.
Yeah. Now, is there any way that we can kind of preempt this sort of happening? Like I know you can come in and say, well, we've got people who have recognized the problem, and so they'll come and say, well, I'm going to bring in your organization to do it. But can we get ahead of this so we don't get into that situation? Is that possible to do that?
I think it's hard. I think it's really hard because I think there's so much root system in us that's been cultivated over years. And to me, if you want a different fruit seen, there has to be an adjustment in the root that produced it. And so
that sounds like me, the entrepreneur, yeah.
Exactly, right? And so one of the things I tell people all the time is takes work. And most people are honestly, they don't want to get their hands dirty, and they just really want to move forward at a fast pace, and smart people, but they just sometimes forget the power of collaboration and collection. And so, but that takes hard work. It just does. And sometimes it's just hard to really you can get in front of what's next, but you're always going to have to deal with what was behind.
Right. So what got you to join Coach program? What got you?
Mindset. I mean, like I've struggled, to be quite honest with you, growing up in the age that I grew up in. Scarcity was something that was easily accepted. Like you always felt like if I don't get mine, if somebody else is getting something, I probably am not getting it. And so I just stayed in this fight mode constantly because I just always felt like for me to have, somebody else had to lose.
Right.
And so when I started seeing some of the things about Coach, and I started reading the books, and I'm like, man, there's a different way to live. And it begins. So we believe, and I think we're perfectly aligned with Strategic Coach, in that every result starts with a thought.
Okay.
How do you, if you want to change a result, it's not just putting your hands on something and do it more aggressively. It's how do we change the way we think, which leads to and provokes emotion that drives actions that produces results. It all starts with, and that's the biggest thing with Strategic Coach that got my attention, was like, oh, so this is about starting with the right mindset. And that drew me in, and once I got drawn in, it was like, I drank it all.
Great. So what are the obstacles that you're seeing when you look at your clients now and look at the entrepreneurs? What are their obstacles that they have? Because clearly they've grown up, they've likely been successful, they've hired a number of people, but they now got these walls that have been built in that are affecting their performance, they're affecting the team morale. So I heard in a keynote this morning from Joe Polish, he said really, really well. He said, we don't know what we don't know at times. And so sometimes if you've been successful, it may be an enemy to your future growth, because you just got to a point to where you've done well, and you just think, I'll do more of what I've been doing and it should exponentially grow me. And that's not always the case. And so I think the flexibility that entrepreneurs exhibit and practice creates new opportunities for them, that what they did before prepared them for now will never take them to the next level. And so for us, there is a factor in the way people think
and the way people feel that drives an escalated, really an escalated performance level from people if you just bring it into consideration. They just want to be seen and heard.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think we just have to expand our horizon, so to speak, and to go to places we've never been.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I wrote a book. It just came out called Nimble Future, and I have it
Oh,
here.
wow.
And I got asked on Facebook, and came through from Coach. It said, what's the one thing that what's the one big risk, I think they said, that entrepreneurs face in a situation? And I said, my response to that is trying to do the same thing that they've done before. Is that it may have been successful before, just as your point,
Yeah.
but it may not very well be successful now, because you've changed, the situation may be changed, they've changed. And so I said, yeah, just being aware that you can't always do just what you've done before and expect it's going to be successful.
That's fantastic. I mean, it is true. I say it like this: to get where you've never been, you have to do things you've never done.
Ah, absolutely, yeah.
And so if we think we can do the same things and get to a new place, we're fooling ourselves. There has to be new ingredients put into the work that you're doing to create a different spot for you to land. And so, as grateful as I am for where I am, it's not enough to get me to where I'm going.
So that brings up the point. So I always look at when the clients and the people in Coach come into their coach program, it is a mindset adjustment. Every workshop you come into, I look at a mindset adjustment, and I kind of equate it to the chiropractor. You go in and you get your body adjusted or whatever. So what are the mindsets that you see are important now as we look forward and for entrepreneurs, when we think about the future, what the next 5 years, 10 years would bring? What are the mindsets that you can see will be successful for entrepreneurs to have?
So I think that abundance mindset is critical. I think ridding ourselves of the mental garbage that we have had in thinking that if somebody else has, I'll lose, has to go. And so, I think the other thing is, I think that people, me personally, I feel having a give mentality first, trusting that the yield will follow, is a mindset that very few people see as impactful as it can be. I think that, collaboration is a critical, that's one of the things I've noticed in the 3 days I've been here. People are not here looking just to drag stuff from me, even though I'm sponsoring. They're hearing what I'm doing and thinking, the thing that's coming out of the conversations is, how do we work together? Because, y'all said a different way, but one of the things that I believe is to create something new, two have to come together that are individuals and produce something new that we couldn't do individually by ourselves.
Right.
That's collaboration.
That's collaboration.
And so that creates the new that most of us are looking for.
Yeah. So does that also translate to the obstacles that entrepreneurs are seeing right now? That they don't have their mindset is an obstacle?
100%. I think, because to me, whether it's an obstacle or an opportunity, it all starts with the way you process your thoughts that leads you to an emotion that drive an action. And so if your mind isn't right, your chances of success and survival in some cases is limited to me. So I think it's the critical first step to successful results.
Yeah, good. So let's look out a little bit.
Yeah.
Reggie, let's look out for the next 5 to 10 years. What do you see as the future of entrepreneurism? That's what this podcast series is about. So what do you see, and how can your company help other entrepreneurs achieve what they want to achieve?
So I see just what we were talking about earlier, more collaboration than we've ever had before. We've taken all of our gifts, talents, and abilities, and we're finding a way to blend them to produce something that's useful not just for our own needs, wants, and desires, but for a world at large. There is so much. I've met people here, and I'm blown away. It's just like
it's an incredible network, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. But what makes it more valuable to me is their willingness and wanting to pour into my life. And now they're looking and they're seeing, all right, look, our giftings are not competitive. They're cooperative. How do we create something that benefits the world at large by us combining what we do together because we're aligned, so that the world that we touch, the effect is positive on them? So to me, that's what it is. How do we take all these gifts, all these me's, if you will, these individuals, and create new we groups that produce something that really blesses and honors the world around us.
Good. So now what are you looking forward to in terms of your participation in Coach? What do you want to, what's going to be important for you?
Yeah, it's interesting to me because at the time in my life, the season I'm in my life, sometimes it's easy to go like, man, I've seen it all. You know, I've been down.
Yeah, we got some gray hairs. I
yeah,
got
that's
that, yeah.
exactly right. But I'm feeling a new sense of territory advancement, like to where I'm like, oh my God, there's insight here that's valuable, that makes me believe that what's ahead of me is going to be more powerful than what's behind me. Yeah. And I've done some great things. I've been a part of some great things. But I'm sitting there going like, this season that I'm in, there's an opportunity to do things that will change generations to come by these collaborations, as opposed to me feeling the pressure of having to do something monumental and memorable by myself.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Reggie, I'm really excited that you're here and that you're collaborating with Coach right now and seeing all these people, and for your participation in Strategic Coach. I'll be fascinated to see how your journey goes now for someone who's been around almost 3 decades and still excited and still motivated about what's going on. So I appreciate you being with us today.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and just this network and having the opportunity to be a part of it is life-giving.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.